Hi, welcome to a rather strange video. Now, I'm stuck in traffic. I'm on the A20, I've just been to Dover, and I was heading home. Thought I'd drop on the A20 dual carriageway super quick, and there's been an accident. And you know those accidents where you're stuck and stranded in your car, and it could be 2-3 hours. I've already been here an hour and 45 minutes. So I thought, well, let's make use of the time, because I think I'm still going to be here for quite a while, and it's foggy as anything outside, and have a quick talk about Apple. Not Apple computers, not Apple the fruit, but the Beatles Apple record label, something that's been on my mind for a while. Now, I'd always thought, and probably mostly because I'd read it somewhere, or maybe I'd seen a video, that the Beatles had created their White Album so that they could fulfill their contract obligations with Parlophone Records. And that's to say that they had to provide a specific number of albums within the contract period before they could be released from the contract. And that got me thinking about Apple and why the Beatles created it. Now, it's understood that the Beatles signed with Parlophone in 1962, and that their contract was for an initial term of 7 years, which would take them to 1969. But in 1968, the Beatles created Apple, which was initially formed as a record label, but also a vehicle for the band's creative ventures beyond music, and comprised of various divisions such as recording, publishing, film production, and merchandising, so retail. So going back to the Parlophone contract, it was common practice for contracts to bind an artist to a record label for either a period of time or for a specific number of album releases. I've got a guy racing his car beside me. That's not necessary, is it? When you're stuck in traffic and the guy's revving his car up. In 1968, they launched Apple, and they released 4 albums on there. So the White Album, Yellow Submarine, Abbey Road, and Let It Be. Now, the creation of Apple Corps and the Apple record label was influenced by several factors, including their desire for greater autonomy as well as artistic and financial control. And they sought to break away from the traditional constraints of the music industry, as well as exploring new ventures and musical projects. And they wanted also to create a platform for other artists beyond their own recordings. It's all happening. Maybe I'll get this finished before the road clears up. What a way to spend a traffic jam time. So while Apple primarily focused on promoting the Beatles' music, they did sign and release albums by other artists as well. I think the artist that comes to mind primarily for me is Mary Hopkin, and she experienced notable success while she was signed to the Apple label. She was one of the first artists to be signed, and her debut single, Those Were the Days, released in 1968, became an international hit. There was James Taylor, and he was initially signed to Apple, but didn't gain commercial success with them. His self-titled album, James Taylor, released in 1968, didn't achieve any sales or chart success. Well, major. So his tenure with Apple was short-lived. He subsequently went on to sign with Warner Brothers label and released his breakthrough album, Sweet Baby James, in 1970. And that propelled James Taylor to stardom. Before I continue, that's my current view at the moment. I'm still stuck here. Could be a while. Another band signed to Apple was Badfinger, and they experienced both commercial success and critical acclaim during their time with the label. And the band was one of the first acts signed to the label in 1968. And they released several albums and singles. Their biggest success came with the hit single Come and Get It, which was written and produced by Paul McCartney. I can hear it now. Come and get it. No, what is it? If you want it, He writes some of the simplest songs, doesn't he? Now, their albums, particularly No Dice in 1970 and Straight Up in 1971, received positive reviews and were considered classic examples of power pop rock music for that era. There were other artists that were signed to the label: Jackie Lomax, Billy Preston, the Ridda Krishna Temple, and Doris Troy, just to name a few. I'm sure there must be more. So let's look at the other divisions then. We've got Apple Publishing, and this division managed the publishing rights for the Beatles songs, as well as the publishing interests of other artists who were associated with Apple. And it played a crucial role in protecting and monetizing the Beatles' extensive catalogue, ensuring that their music was properly licensed for use in various mediums such as films, commercials, and cover versions. Now, another division of Apple was Apple Films, and it was responsible for production and distribution of films and documentaries relating to the Beatles, and it produced the movies Yellow Submarine, Let It Be, and Magical Mystery Tour. Although Apple Films had a relatively short lifespan, it left a lasting impact of the Beatles' legacy, contributing to the band's visual representation of the fusion of music and cinema together. Another division was Apple Electronics, which focused on developing and promoting innovative electronic devices and technologies. And while the division didn't achieve substantial success, it did release a few experimental electronic products. And I'm thinking Magic Alex, right? So while Apple Electronics may not have realized its full potential, it served as a reminder of the Beatles' interests and experimentation with technology beyond their music, and their willingness to venture into diverse business endeavours. I'm not sure if this is a good idea, doing this video from the car. I've got boom bass music and an engine running in the white van next to me. There's boom bass music in the car in front. Traffic's whizzing by on the right hand side because there's no accident, is there? I actually wonder if there's been a fatality, because when it's just a normal RTA, road traffic accident, then you just you get detours and they whiz you by. But if there's been some kind of fatality, it's frightening, isn't it? Then they have to do all the measuring and everything, get the bodies out. 2 hours I've been sat here. Apple Retail, also a division of Apple Corps, was established in the late 60s to venture into the world of retail operations. The division flagship venture was the Apple Boutique, which was a clothing store located in London. The Apple Boutique aimed to offer a unique shopping experience that combined fashion, art, and music, but the store faced various challenges, including financial challenges and issues with inventory management. And I think that was probably because they were giving the stuff away, is that right? Drop me a comment. But of course, it did highlight the Beatles' desire to explore new ventures beyond the realms of music. Oh, we might be having some movement. I'm going to continue this at home.
Few moments later.
That was a weird one. I think what I'm going to do is, I'm at Sainsbury's. I've got to get myself a baguette or something, get some lunch. Stuck in a traffic jam for 2.5 hours. So in conclusion though, Apple, created by the Beatles as a vehicle for their continued ventures and entrepreneurial spirit and all things Beatlesque, still remains to this day. It oversees all the control of Beatles material and copyrights and licensing. It's still owned by Paul and Ringo, as well as the estates of Lennon and Harrison, so Olivia and Yoko. So all in all, when I think back that little interview clip of John and Paul talking about what Apple is and what they're going to do with it.
What is Apple, John?
It's a company we're setting up which involves records, films, electronics which make records and films work, and what's it called, manufacturing?
Yeah, it does a few things.
You know, the byproducts that end up with Larry Page T-shirts and that.
It's just trying to mix business with enjoyment.
Pleasure.
Because we're in business, you know. We find ourselves in business.
Are you the
We're trying to
directors?
make it-
Are you the directors
Yeah.
of this?
Actually turned out to be a very successful business venture. Yes, it had its ups and downs. It's had its legal battles with, say, for instance, Apple Inc., you know, the computer company, whereby I think Apple Inc. was permitted to use the Apple logo, but still had to release some of the copyright through to Apple Records or Apple label, Apple Corps. So does that mean Apple still get a cut of everything Apple Inc. do? I don't know. Anyway, I filled the time. I should call this Stories from the Car, shouldn't I? Let's do Beatles stories from the car. Right, I'm going shopping. Thanks for watching. Bearing with if you stuck with it throughout the whole thing. I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.